Cole Mercer noticed the girl in the gray hoodie the moment she wheeled through the door of Patton's diner, not because of the chair, but because of the way she moved in it, like someone who'd spent years learning to take up exactly the space she needed, and not 1 inch more. He was on his third coffee of the morning, his fourth hour of sitting with a problem that didn't have a clean answer, and his back was to the wall in the corner booth, farthest from the door, the same spot he always chose because it put every exit in his sight line and nothing behind him. Old habit. The kind of habit you don't unlearn once you've acquired it, even when the reasons for it are long in the past. Patton's Diner was a Route 12 institution. Concrete block-painted cream on the outside, red vinyl booths cracked at the seams on the inside, a counter that had absorbed 40 years of coffee rings and hard mornings and every kind of human drama a small Tennessee county could produce. The breakfast crowd had thinned to stragglers by 9. 3 retired men occupied the far stools with the settled permanence of people who had been coming here since Patton Sr. ran the griddle. Deb, who'd been working this room longer than Cole had been riding, moved between tables with the efficiency of a woman who had gotten very good at reading which customers wanted conversation and which ones wanted to be left alone. Cole was in the second category. Deb had understood this for 11 years. 22 minutes after the girl in the gray hoodie sat down at booth 7, Cole would put a man's face through a laminate countertop. If this story reaches you, stay until the very end. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, and drop a comment below telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see exactly how far this one travels. Cole Mercer was 44 years old, 6 feet 2 inches, with the president's patch of the Knoxville chapter on his cut, and 9 years of wearing it behind him. His hair had gone mostly gray at the temples in the last 2 years, faster than he'd expected, though his crew had collectively decided not to mention it more than twice. The beard was still dark, and there were lines around his eyes that accumulated the way they do on men who don't sleep well and have stopped apologizing for it. His hands were a working mechanic's hands, calloused and scarred across the knuckles, with engine grease worked permanently into the creases, regardless of how thoroughly he cleaned them, and they wrapped around his coffee mug now with the particular stillness of someone who had learned, over a long time, that the first thing you controlled in any room was your own body. He ran Mercer Custom Works on Alcoa Highway. 3 bays, a parts room, a reputation that had spread to 6 states by word of mouth, because Cole neither advertised nor competed. People drove from Atlanta, from Nashville, from Lexington to have him build their bikes. He charged what was fair, worked at the pace the work required, and never promised a timeline he couldn't keep. The shop was fully paid, no debt, built dollar by dollar over 11 years from a position of having almost nothing when he came back to Knoxville in his early 30s after a situation he didn't discuss. The situation had a shape. It involved a man who deserved what he got, a club that handled it the way clubs sometimes did, and a charge that was filed, reduced, served, and finished. Cole had walked out of that chapter with a clear record, a lesson about how far he was willing to go for the people he was responsible for, and the understanding that the answer was farther than the law preferred. He'd built the shop on the other side of it, clean, his own. His sister Rosie had been the reason he'd come back to Knoxville in the first place. She'd been his younger sister by 3 years, and she'd had cerebral palsy since birth, which meant she'd grown up navigating a world designed for a different body, and had developed the particular combination of intelligence and stubbornness that arises in people who have no option but to solve problems others don't even perceive as problems. Cole had spent 31 years watching her do this. He'd done what he could to clear the obstacles she couldn't reach. He hadn't been able to clear all of them. Nobody could. When Rosie was 27, she'd told him she wanted to ride with him. She'd said it the way she said most things, matter-of-factly, as though the complication was the world's problem and not hers. There were commercial sidecar options for riders with mobility limitations. Cole had looked at all of them and found every one insufficient in ways that someone who'd never watched Rosie navigate a transfer would never have identified. The mount geometry was wrong for her specific spasticity patterns. The ingress design assumed a range of motion she didn't consistently have. The grip systems were designed for average upper body strength, not hers. He spent 4 months designing and building something specific to her. Not the available thing, the right thing. She rode with him for 4 years. Her face turned into the Tennessee wind, the same way his was, laughing the same way he never quite managed himself. On long rides, she'd read the landscape aloud in the particular way she had of narrating things, and he'd listen with the particular way he had of not answering much but tracking every word. She died on a Tuesday in March 26 months ago, a cardiac event, 41 years old. The kind of Tuesday that divided a life into before and after, without asking whether the man living it was. Ready, after she was gone, Cole kept doing the modifications. He wasn't sure why exactly. Habit, maybe? Or some version of the specific grief that expresses itself in continuing the work rather than stopping it. 14 families had reached him through a disability forum thread that someone had posted about Rosie's rig. He charged them cost, which was low. 3 of them he charged nothing because the situation was what it was. He didn't post about it, didn't advertise, didn't look for recognition. It was just work that needed doing, and that he could do. And those 2 facts were sufficient reason. That was the version of Cole Mercer, sitting in Patton's corner booth on this November Thursday, turning a problem over that didn't have a clean answer. The other version, the one who'd been notified 3 weeks ago, that the Knoxville chapter was under ATF surveillance, the one whose lawyer had been careful and clear but not entirely reassuring. Sat in the same body, in the same booth, with the same hands wrapped around the same mug. The federal attention wasn't about Cole's operation specifically. 2 other chapters in the state had generated activity the ATF was using to build a broader case, and broad cases by nature pull in adjacent people, even when those people haven't done anything worth pulling in. Cole's lawyer had been through the disclosure and found nothing actionable, but visible surveillance was a tool designed to make you move, react, do something documentable. The correct response was to be exactly as boring as possible for as long as it took. Cole had been being boring for 3 weeks. It was not his best gear. The girl came through the door at 9:14 by the clock above the counter. She navigated to booth 7 with the efficiency of someone who'd assessed the floor plan before entering. The accessible path, the table height, the angle that gave her the exit sightline. The wheelchair was manual, aluminum frame, nothing flashy, the chair of someone who used it as a tool rather than an accessory. Dark hair pulled back loose, a gray hoodie designed to make her invisible jeans, and the look of someone whose mind was working on something she'd brought in with her, rather than anything in the room. Her phone went face down on the table the moment she sat, the gesture of someone deliberately choosing to be unreachable for a while. Young, mid-20s, Cole thought. He noticed all of this the way he noticed everything, and went back to his own problem. The 3 young men came in at 9:31. Cole noticed them immediately. He always noticed when the temperature of a room changed, and these 3 changed it. Not with obvious aggression, but with the particular careless energy of people who'd grown up in environments where their comfort was the default setting, and everyone else's discomfort was background noise. The tallest one set off a specific register. He moved through the room the way a person moves when they've never had anyone redirect them. Fluid with assumption, loose with confidence, his eyes moving across the diner with the scan of someone taking inventory of what was there for him. His 2 companions were satellites, the kind who follow the louder person's lead and escalate when he escalates, because it's the only social calibration they know. They sat down, ordered nothing, put their phones on the table, started doing the kind of quiet laughing designed to be heard. For 2 minutes they were just noise. Then Tyler Brent. Cole would learn his name and his father's name later, would learn that his father was Roy Brent, Knox County Sheriff for 11 years, noticed the girl in booth 7. The shift was subtle. The angle of his body changed, orienting toward her. He said something low to his friends. Both of them looked. One grinned with the quality of grin that suggests they're about to watch something rather than participate in it, which meant Tyler had established himself as the one running this operation. The girl hadn't looked up. Whatever she was thinking about was still more interesting than whatever was happening 4 booths over. Tyler said something audible this time, not quite loud enough for Cole to parse from the corner, but with a tone he recognized, the up-tilted end of a statement that wanted acknowledgement, performing for an audience while aimed at a target. The girl still didn't look up. Cole set his coffee mug down. He didn't stand, not yet. He was watching the shape of it, trying to determine whether this resolved on its own when the target failed to engage, or whether it escalated under indifference. He'd seen both. Most of the time, indifference worked. Most of the time, cruelty fed on reaction and starved without it. Tyler stood up. That answered the question. He moved to the counter first, asked Deb something, with the exaggerated patience of someone who wasn't actually interested in the answer, and used the movement to position himself in the aisle, closer to booth 7. His friends drifted out of their seats and arranged themselves in the adjacent space, with the geometry of people who'd done this kind of thing before. Not violently, not explicitly, but in the practiced way that applied pressure through proximity. Cole heard what Tyler said this time. Rough thing, being stuck in that. A pause. Is that like permanent or? The girl's voice was level when it came, flat in the specific way that indicated she'd been in this room before, metaphorically speaking, and had a protocol for it. Permanent, and not a topic for conversation with strangers. She turned back to the window. Tyler's friends exchanged a look Cole could read from 40 feet away. The look said she didn't engage, what do we do? And Tyler's posture said we escalate. Just asking, Tyler said. His voice had acquired a floor, something beneath the casual surface that was less light than it sounded. No offense. Then walk away, the girl said, still not looking. The thing is, Tyler leaned against the booth across from hers, close enough now that the distance was itself the message. My cousin has one of those, the chair, so I'm kind of curious. His friends had settled into flanking positions with the ease of a rehearsed geometry. What happened to you? Deb was at the far end of the counter, with her hand on her order pad and her feet planted, not moving. The retired men at the stools had all found reasons to look at their coffee cups. The elderly couple near the window had turned slightly toward the wall. Every person in the room was making the same decision Cole had just decided against making. I'm going to ask you one more time, the girl said, to leave me alone. One more time. Tyler repeated it, the way people repeat things when they want to make clear they're not taking the content seriously. Okay. Noted. He was already reaching for her phone on the table. His hand wrapped around it and lifted it before she could react. He turned it over, looked at the screen. Huh! Reach Tech, that your company? Cole was out of his seat, not at speed. The worst thing a man could do in a moment like this was move in a way that read as uncontrolled, because uncontrolled movement invited the wrong kind of escalation. He moved at the pace of complete certainty, which was different from urgency in ways that mattered. Certainty said the outcome was already determined, and the only open question was how quickly everyone else caught up. He covered 30 feet of checkered tile in 11 steps. Tyler had the phone in his hand, and his back was half turned, reading something on the screen or pretending to, performing for his friends, when Cole's hand came around his wrist in a grip that was not violent, but was entirely non-negotiable. The grip said, "This hand and this phone are going to separate. The only variable is whether that happens before or after this becomes something else." Tyler turned, and whatever expression he'd been wearing dissolved into surprise. "Put it down," Cole said. Tyler's satellite on the left moved forward, the kind of reflex that didn't involve thinking, just responding to a status hierarchy being disrupted. Cole shifted his weight 2 inches and redirected him into the booth edge with his free hand. Enough to make the point without making injury. The kid hit the padded seat back and stayed there, reassessing. The second one pulled up short, looked at what had happened to his friend, looked at Cole and stayed put. Tyler's grip unclenched. The phone went back on the table. Cole released his wrist. He did not step back. Stepping back would suggest uncertainty about a point's durability, and he had none. "Sit down," he said, "all 3 of you. Over there." He indicated the far booth with his chin. Now, they went not cheerfully, but they went. Cole picked up the girl's phone, placed it in front of her, and looked at her directly for the first time. She was looking back at him with an expression he read as assessment, taking inventory of what had just happened, categorizing the man who'd done it, deciding what she thought about both. "Are you all right?" he asked. "Largely," she said. "Then thank you." A pause that felt deliberate. "They'll call someone, probably." Cole went back to his corner. He didn't sit down. He stood at his booth with one hand on the table, watching Tyler's group, the hunched conversation. Tyler's phone already out, typing something. He'd been right about the call. The question was who received it and how fast. The answer was Deputy Holt, 18 minutes later. He was 38, methodical, with the manner of someone who'd learned that the first thing you did in any situation was read it before acting. He came through the door at a deliberate pace, scanned the room, found the relevant components. Cole in the corner, Tyler's group in the far booth, the girl in booth 7 with her hand wrapped around a fresh coffee that Deb had brought at some point, and walked to the counter before approaching anyone. Cole had his ID on the table before Holt reached him. Just his ID. Holt looked at it, looked at the cut, looked at Cole's face, which gave him nothing because Cole had been wearing that particular expression since the ATF news 3 weeks ago. Report of an altercation. Holt said, 3 men harassed a woman, Cole said. 1 took her phone off the table. I intervened. No injury sustained. Holt turned to booth 7. That accurate, ma'am? The girl looked up from her coffee. That's accurate. I'd also like to report the phone being taken as theft of personal property, regardless of how briefly it was held. Something shifted in Holt's expression, a slight recalibration, the adjustment of a man who'd walked into a scene expecting one shape and found another. I'll need to speak with you outside, Mr. Mercer, Holt said. Cole stood. Officer! The girl's voice stopped him. He turned. She was holding her phone up, and on the screen was something she'd pulled up while Cole had been watching Holt's approach. He couldn't read the text from where he stood, but she narrated it without hesitation. Cole Mercer, 44, president of the Knoxville chapter, owner of Mercer Custom Works on Alcoa Highway. She said it with the precision of someone reading from a verified document. Currently on an expanded ATF monitoring list, active for approximately 3 months, which means this conversation creates documentation you'd prefer to avoid. She looked at Holt directly. My name is Nadia Reyes. The 3 men in the far booth made repeated comments about my disability. One of them removed my phone without my permission, and the only person in this diner who intervened was Mr. Mercer. If Tyler Brent called his father to characterize this as an assault, I'm prepared to provide a complete timeline directly to Sheriff Brent. I have his office number. The diner went completely still. Holt looked at Tyler's booth. He looked at Cole. He looked at Nadia Reyes, who was looking back at him with the composure of someone who understood exactly how rooms worked. I'll need statements from everyone present, Holt said finally. His voice had dropped a register. Shouldn't take long. It took 22 minutes. At the end of them, Holt had 3 written accounts, the documented timeline, and Tyler Brent's number written in his notepad without comment. The 3 young men left first, quickly, not looking at anyone on their way out. Holt left after them, his departure preceded by a long look at Cole that said nothing actionable and meant several things. The diner exhaled. Deb cleared the far booth. The retired men reclaimed their conversational ground. Cole was still standing at his booth when Nadia wheeled over. She came to his table rather than signaling him to hers, which he noticed. A small thing, the kind of small thing that turns out to be accurate information about a person. She settled at the booth's end, coffee in hand, and looked at him across the table with an expression he was still trying to categorize. He sat down. You've been busy, he said, meaning the research she'd done while Holt was present. I had about 4 minutes, she said. I'm efficient. A silence that wasn't uncomfortable settled for a moment. Deb appeared, topped off Cole's mug without being asked, and vanished again with the professionalism of someone who'd decided this conversation was above her jurisdiction. Nadia Reyes, Cole said. Yes. Reach Tech, yes. She watched him. You've heard of it? I know what it is. Accessibility technology. Software, some hardware. He paused. I looked it up when I saw the name on your screen. While Holt was taking statements, I'm also efficient. That almost got a smile. Almost. She folded her hands around her mug. He could see her making a decision, the visible pause of a person who'd decided to say something real rather than something managed. I'm in Knox County assessing sites for a new facility. I prefer to scout without being recognized, which is why. She indicated the hoodie. Usually works, Cole said. Usually works, she agreed. Bad luck on the company. She paused. Your situation with the federal surveillance. I understand why that matters for what just happened. I managed it. You had help managing it, she said. Not correcting him, just accurate. Why didn't you let Holt handle it before I said anything? The question was genuine. He could hear it. Didn't know who you were, he said. Didn't need to. Nadia looked at him for a moment. I want to tell you something first, she said, and then I want to make you an offer. But I want you to know the offer existed before this morning, before this diner, before any of this. It's why I came to Knox County. Cole looked at her. Your sister's name was Rosie, she said. He went still. Not outwardly. His posture didn't change, his expression didn't shift. But something behind his sternum went quiet in the specific way that quiet happens when a name you don't expect to hear in a strange context gets used. I found a thread in the SCI Families Forum 8 months ago, Nadia said. Her voice was careful but not cautious, not tiptoeing, just accurate. Someone had posted a detailed description of the rig you built for her. The mount system, the load distribution, the transfer assist mechanism. I read it and found every other post you'd been referenced in. 14 families. She paused. I had my engineering team analyze the mount system design from the description in that first post. It took them 2 weeks, and they still had questions they couldn't answer without the actual schematics. Cole was looking at her steadily. What you built for Rosie wasn't a modified sidecar, she said. It was a redesigned interface between a person's specific body and a machine, designed for a different body. The engineering is original. The approach is clinical in quality, which is a different thing from what's commercially available in adaptive mobility, where the standard practice is to modify an existing design as minimally as possible. She held his gaze. You built the right thing, not the available thing. That the distinction is not as common as it should be. Cole turned his mug once, slowly. What's the offer? She looked at him. Reach Tech's Adaptive Mobility Division. We've been developing it for 2 years. Wheelchairs primarily, but the engineering keeps hitting the same wall. Our team understands the specifications, but they've never needed the specifications. They design solutions that solve the technical problem and miss the human one. A pause. The adaptive motorcycle work you've been doing for free, for families who had no other option. That's exactly what we can't replicate internally, because replicating it requires understanding that you built by necessity, by caring about one specific person and building her the right thing, rather than a thing that fit the available templates. She leaned forward slightly. Formal partnership. Mercer Custom Works as primary development and manufacturing partner for the adaptive division. You run the technical work. Keep the shop, keep your name. Reach Tech provides capital, legal infrastructure, distribution. You provide the engineering approach and the direct knowledge. She looked at him. The 14 families who found you through that forum. There are 14,000 people with the same need who never found the forum. The offer sat between them on the table. Cole's phone buzzed. He looked at it without picking it up. The preview text was from Hatchett, his sergeant-at-arms. Federal vehicle confirmed at the shop since ZO 700. Nothing active. Call me. His jaw tightened. He looked back up at Nadia, who had watched his eyes move to the phone and back without commenting. Give me a minute, he said. Outside. The November cold was immediate and thorough. He called Hatchett, who answered before the second ring. 4 minutes. A standard federal surveillance vehicle had been parked across from the shop since before opening. Visible, not operational. The move was visible because it was meant to be. It was designed to make him react. Cole ended the call and stood at the diner's exterior wall for a long moment. The offer had a new dimension now, taking a high-visibility corporate partnership, even a legitimate one, especially a legitimate one, during an active surveillance period created the kind of paper trail that a federal attorney could shape into something it wasn't. Clean decisions made under scrutiny looked like repositioning. Repositioning looked like preparation. Preparation to 12 people in a jury box who'd been told to draw reasonable inferences looked like consciousness of guilt. He went back inside. Nadia was looking at him when he sat down, not with studied neutrality, but with the direct attention of someone who'd already formed part of the picture and was waiting for him to fill in the specific piece she didn't have. "What's actually stopping you?" she said. "Because I don't think it's the money." Cole looked at her for a moment. He'd spent 9 years making calls about how much of the shape to show in any given room. Too much, and you gave people leverage they'd misuse. Too little, and you drove the wrong decisions with the wrong information. "My club is under federal surveillance," he said. "Active for 3 months, possibly longer. Nothing actionable per my lawyer, but broad-based and ongoing. Taking a major corporate partnership right now, even a clean one, creates a paper trail that looks like someone repositioning assets ahead of a potential charge." He met her eyes. "I'm not repositioning anything. But federal attorneys are in the business of making optics mean things they don't." Nadia was quiet for a moment, processing, the visible kind, where you could almost watch the pieces being placed. Then, if the partnership were structured as a consulting agreement, rather than a formal equity arrangement, the legal classification is contractor and client, not corporate partners. No ownership change, no equity transfer, no association in the formal sense. You'd be a contractor receiving payment for specialized technical work. A pause. "It also creates documented legitimate income during the surveillance window, which is not suspicious. It's the opposite of suspicious." Cole looked at her. "I've spent a lot of time thinking about how documents say what they say," she said. "The lawsuit over my accident taught me that legal language is most valuable when it's being used to state accurate things clearly, because clarity is the hardest thing for anyone to work against." "Your accident," he said. 19 years old. Drunk driver ran a red light at 52 miles an hour and took the back passenger side of my car." She said this with the flat precision of someone who'd made peace with the recitation, though peace and ease were different things. The driver was the son of a city councilman in Nashville. The police report was filed in a manner that was technically accurate and practically misleading. 2 years later, I brought a lawsuit, won, and used the judgment to found ReachTech. A pause. The councilman's son pled no contest, paid a $6,000 fine, kept his license. Cole said nothing. "I'm not telling you this for sympathy," Nadia said. "I'm telling you because I want you to understand what kind of person you're actually talking to. I understand what it means to have a legal system perform the technical minimum while the real outcome gets decided by who has access to which rooms." She looked at him directly. "And I understand why someone might structure their life to operate outside those rooms as much as possible." Cole turned his mug once more. "I'll meet with your technical team," he said. "I'm not signing anything until my lawyer has reviewed the consulting structure and until I've seen your current adaptive work in person. Not documentation, the actual work. I can arrange that within the week, then arrange it." He stood and left his card on the table, plain white. Mercer Custom Works, the shop number, nothing else. Monday through Friday before 6. Nadia picked it up, looked at it, put it in the front pocket of her hoodie. She did not offer one of her own. She knew he'd already found her company. Cole pulled on his jacket. He stood at the edge of the booth for a moment, looking at her. This woman who'd come into this diner with a site assessment running on her phone and a hoodie designed to make her invisible, who'd handled 3 men and a deputy and the full weight of a corporate offer in the space of 90 minutes with the composure of someone who'd been doing harder things since she was 19 years old. "For what it's worth," he said, "you handled this morning well." "So did you," she said. He left. He crossed the parking lot to his Road King, black, stripped to essentials, no chrome that didn't serve a function, and stood beside it with his hand on the tank. Route 12 was light traffic, the mid-morning lull between commuter time and lunch. He started the engine and sat with it idling. Through the diner window he could see Booth 7. Nadia had turned back to her phone, the work she'd brought in with her reclaimed, moving through whatever she was moving through with the focus of someone for whom attention was a resource deployed rather than given freely. The gray hoodie, the chair at the seat's edge, the direct composure of someone who'd learned that the world was navigable if you were willing to understand exactly how it worked. He pulled onto Route 12 heading north. The problem he'd been sitting with for 3 weeks hadn't solved itself. The ATF situation was the same shape it had been at 9 in the morning. But 14 families had turned into 14,000 in a single conversation. And that was the kind of number that changed what was possible, which was a different kind of change than solving a problem. It was a change that required a different kind of decision. He was 8 miles north of Patton's when his phone buzzed in the tank bag. He pulled over at a gas station shoulder, engine idling, and checked the screen. Nadia Reyes. She'd gotten the number through the shop line. She'd made the call in the time between him leaving and him stopping here, which was under 15 minutes. The text read, 2847 Middlebrook Pike. Thursday at 2 p.m. site I'm considering for the facility. A second perspective would be useful. Below that, after a line break, for the record, this offer predates this morning. It was already the reason I came to Knox County. I looked you up because of Rosie's rig and because of what 14 families said about what you built for them. Today confirmed what the research said, but it didn't create the offer. Another line. She sounds like she was someone who understood exactly what she deserved from the world and didn't accept less. The rig you built her, you understood what she needed, not what was available. That's the difference between most people and the people who actually change things. I want to build something that changes things. I think you do too. Cole read it twice. He sat on the bike at the gas station's edge with the engine running and traffic moving behind him on Route 12, and the cold pressing through everything, and he held the phone for a long time without moving. Rosie, at 27, in the sidecar rig for the first time. The expression she'd had her whole life, the one that said she knew exactly what it had cost and exactly how. Little she was going to make of that fact in either direction. Are we going or not? They'd gone. He typed back, I'll be there. He put the phone away and pulled back onto Route 12. Thursday arrived with an overcast sky and the threat of rain by afternoon. Cole pulled into the lot at 2847 Middlebrook Pike at 1:57, 3 minutes early, which was as late as he allowed himself. The property was a former light manufacturing facility, 62,000 square feet of concrete floor, high ceilings, loading docks on 2 sides, and enough square footage to house an adaptive engineering operation that would have looked like science fiction from where Cole had started this work. Nadia was already there, her modified SUV parked near the main entrance, standing outside it in a heavier coat than the gray hoodie, phone in one hand. She looked up when he pulled in. Your lawyer reviewed it, she said, by way of greeting, meaning the consulting structure her legal team had sent over. He reviewed it, Cole said. Took him 4 hours. His exact words were, this is unusually clean for a deal this size. That's his way of saying he doesn't have a problem with it. Nadia nodded. Good. Then let me show you what you'd actually be working with. They went through the facility for 90 minutes. Nadia had brought her head of engineering, a woman named Priya, who was 31 and had the focused precision of someone who'd learned early that being thorough was faster than being fast. Priya walked Cole through the adaptive division's current work, prototypes of 3 wheelchair designs, a transit boarding system, a hand cycle interface that was technically excellent, and, as Cole identified within 4 minutes of looking at it, practically wrong in a specific way that the technical specs didn't capture. The grip angle, he said. For a user with median upper limb function, it's fine. For anyone outside that median, in either direction, the torque transfer at full extension is going to create fatigue patterns you won't see in short-term testing. You need adjustable geometry, not fixed. Priya had her notebook out. Nadia was watching Cole with the expression of someone who'd been told something by the research and was now watching the research confirm itself. That's a 6-week redesign, Priya said. 4 if you start from the geometry rather than the casing, Cole said. The casing is fine. It's a mounting problem, not a structural one. Priya wrote something down. They walked the space. Cole measured ceiling heights, assessed the loading dock access for the larger rig work, identified where additional power infrastructure would need to come in for the fabrication equipment. He asked specific questions about material suppliers, turnaround timelines, how the division would interface with Reach Tech's broader manufacturing chain. Nadia answered all of them directly and flagged the two she didn't have immediate answers to, rather than approximating, which Cole noted. At the end of it, they stood in the main floor space, with the overcast light coming through the high windows and the empty square footage around them, carrying the particular quality of spaces that haven't yet been told what they're going to become. "You see it," Nadia said. "Not a question." "I see it," Cole said. "Then tell me what you need to start." Cole looked at the space for a moment. He thought about Rosie, who would have had opinions about all of this. Specific, practical opinions delivered in the matter-of-fact way she delivered everything, as though the path forward was always obvious. Once you stopped letting the complication persuade you, it was insurmountable. He thought about the 14 families, and the woman whose rig had taken him 6 weeks and cost her $400, because that was what the situation was, and about what it would mean to not be limited by what the situation was anymore. "I need the consulting agreement finalized this week," he said. "I need Priya on-site in Knoxville for 2 weeks to understand how we currently work before we talk about scaling anything. And I need your word that the first thing this division does is right, not fast. That we build what people actually need, not what meets a product launch timeline." Nadia looked at him for a moment. "Then you have my word on all 3. Cole nodded once. Outside, the first rain of the evening had started, light and cold, tapping against the facility's roof with the indifferent persistence of weather. He stood in the doorway looking at the parking lot, at Route 12 visible past the lot's edge, at the gray November sky, doing what November skies did in Tennessee, without asking whether anyone had plans. "Can I ask you something?" Nadia said behind him. He turned. "The 14 families you helped, you charged them nothing, or close to it. That was before any of this, before any offer or opportunity." She was looking at him with the direct attention she'd been looking at him with since Booth 7. "Why? You had your own shop to run, your own bills. You could have just let the forum thread stay a forum thread." Cole looked at her for a moment. "Rosie wanted to ride," he said. "I built her something that worked. After she was gone, people showed up who needed the same thing, and I was the one who knew how to build it." He paused. "That's the whole reason." Nadia was quiet. "That's the only reason I'm standing in this building right now," he said. "Not because of the scale, because the reason is the same one it's always been. There are people who need the right thing built, and I know how to build it." He looked at her. "As long as that stays true, I'm in." Nadia looked at him for a long moment. Then she extended her hand. He shook it. It was the kind of handshake that had nothing to do with the deal documentation Priya's team was finalizing, nothing to do with the consulting structure Cole's lawyer had reviewed, nothing to do with 14,000 families or a 62,000 square foot facility in Knox County. It was the handshake of two people who'd found each other at the exact intersection of what they were each trying to do, and who had decided, separately and together, that this was the right starting point for whatever came next. Cole rode back to Alcoa Highway in the rain. The shop was still there when he pulled in, 3 bays lit from inside, Vernon's truck in the lot, the hand-painted sign above the office door reading Mercer Custom Works exactly the way it always had. He sat in the lot for a moment with the engine running, the rain coming down steady now, the cold working through his jacket in that particular way it had this time of year. He thought about the 14,000. He thought about Rosie's face turned into the wind. He thought about a girl in a gray hoodie who'd come into a diner with a site assessment on her phone and had, in the space of one Thursday morning, been the sharpest person in every conversation she'd entered. He cut the engine and went inside. There was work to do. He started doing it. If this story stayed with you, if you've ever seen someone stand up when the room made the other choice, or watched someone build something real from the ground of what they'd lost, Subscribe to the channel and drop a comment below. Tell me what city you're watching from. And share this with someone who needs to hear that the right person shows up at exactly the right moment, even when neither of them planned it that way.